but on September 12, 1944, sweeping over Peleliu at 8,000 feet, Stout looked down and found not an abandoned base, but an enemy preparing for a massacre. The airfield was packed with dozens of Mitsubishi Zeros and Nakajima bombers, lined up wingtip to wingtip, surrounded by stacks of fuel drums. Ground crews swarmed the aircraft, readying them for a massive strike. Stout quickly counted at least 40 fully armed and fueled planes. He knew exactly what they were waiting for. The invasion fleet carrying 28,000 Marines, due to storm the beaches of Peleliu in 3 days. These 40 aircraft were positioned to slaughter them before they ever reached the shore. Stout's training was clear: observe, report coordinates, and return to base. A reconnaissance pilot was strictly to report, not engage, especially not alone against an entire airfield bristling with anti-aircraft guns. However, Stout also understood the military bureaucracy. By the time he landed, filed his report, and command assembled a strike package, hours, perhaps a full day, would pass. The Japanese would use that time to scatter their aircraft, hide them, or launch them against the approaching fleet. The Marines landing in 3 days did not have time for proper procedure. Those planes needed to be destroyed, now. Circling higher, Stout spotted a critical mistake made in the Japanese haste. The aircraft were packed too closely together, surrounded by exposed fuel drums. One well-placed hit could trigger a chain reaction that would consume the entire field. He checked his F-6F Hellcat's armament: 2,400 rounds for his 6.50 caliber Browning machine guns, roughly 12 seconds of sustained fire. This was not nearly enough to destroy 40 aircraft individually, but it was enough to light a very big fuse. Stout, a 28-year-old veteran of 63 combat missions, knew the difference between courage and suicide. Attacking meant facing every anti-aircraft gun on Peleliu alone, with no wingman to suppress ground fire or cover his escape. One lucky shot could send his Hellcat crashing. Yet, the alternative was worse. If he didn't attack, those 40 aircraft would launch in waves, turning the beaches into killing zones. Stout had witnessed the havoc air attacks wreaked on crowded landing craft at Tarawa. The decision took less than 30 seconds. Stout pushed the throttle forward and rolled the Hellcat into a dive. His plan was simple: come in fast and low, hit the fuel drums first, and escape before the gunners could track him. He leveled off at 2,000 feet, accelerating the Hellcat to nearly 400 miles per hour, barely 50 feet above the jungle canopy. The airfield suddenly appeared. Japanese ground crews froze or dove for cover, none reaching their anti-aircraft positions in time. Stout lined up on the northern row, squeezing the trigger. All 6 machine guns roared. Tracers stitched through a zero, spraying fuel. Stout adjusted his aim, firing into a cluster of fuel drums stacked between 2 bombers. The drums disintegrated under .50 caliber fire, the aviation fuel exploding in a massive fireball that engulfed both aircraft. The explosion was bigger than anticipated, the blast wave rocking his Hellcat as he pulled up hard. Behind him, the fire spread with terrifying speed. The first burning Zero ignited the aircraft beside it, the fire spreading until half the northern row was engulfed within seconds. Japanese crews ran, abandoning any attempt to save the planes. Anti-aircraft gunners finally opened fire, but Stout was already climbing away, weaving to spoil their aim. Tracers arced past, and 20mm rounds shuddered through his tail section. The engine remained strong as he circled back. The devastation exceeded his expectations. Nearly 20 aircraft were burning, yet at least 20 more sat untouched on the southern end of the field. Stout checked his ammunition, half gone, about 6 seconds of firing time left. Coming back for a second pass was nearly suicidal, but he rolled inverted and dove anyway. This time, the anti-aircraft fire was immediate and intense, tracers filling the air. He jinked left and right, never flying straight. The Hellcat shuddered under more impacts. Stout targeted the bombers on the southern end, his remaining ammunition shredding control surfaces and puncturing fuel tanks. He walked his fire across a fuel truck, which exploded with enough force to flip a nearby bomber. The secondary explosion started instantly. Burning fuel spread to ammunition crates, which detonated in a rapid series of blasts. The bomber's own ordnance cooked off, tearing the aircraft apart. Within moments, the southern row was burning as fiercely as the northern. Stout's guns fell silent, empty. The Hellcat felt sluggish as he pulled up, damaged control surfaces fighting him. Warning lights flickered, and smoke trailed behind him. But below, the entire airfield was an inferno. Every aircraft, fuel drum, and structure was consumed by fire, the smoke column rising thousands of feet. Stout pointed the damaged Hellcat toward the ocean and nursed it back to the USS Hornet. Hydraulics were failing, and oil pressure was dropping. The flight back felt longer than the attack. Adrenaline faded, replaced by the realization that he had directly disobeyed orders. Court-martial was a real possibility, but watching those 40 aircraft massacre the Marines would have been worse than any punishment. He radioed the Hornet requesting priority landing. His landing gear partially extended, one wheel failing to lock. He slammed the damaged Hellcat onto the deck, catching the second wire.
Deck crews swarmed the aircraft, shocked by the damage. The tail section was shredded, the fuselage riddled with holes, and the paint scorched black. Stout faced a crowd of officers. The air boss wanted to know why he had combat damage from a reconnaissance mission. The squadron commander wanted to know why he broke radio silence. Stout's report was simple. The airfield wasn't abandoned. It was packed with aircraft preparing to attack the invasion fleet. He had destroyed them, all of them. 40 aircraft gone in 8 minutes. The officers stared, unable to believe that one pilot in a single aircraft had destroyed 40 enemy planes. Reconnaissance photos taken the next day confirmed it. The northern airfield at Peleliu was completely destroyed. Aerial photos showed the burned-out hulks of exactly 40 Japanese planes. Intelligence officers revised their assessment. Instead of facing a devastating air threat on D-Day, the Marines would hit the beaches with complete air superiority. The Japanese air threat had been eliminated by one pilot who refused to follow orders. The Navy awarded Stout the Navy Cross, the second highest decoration for combat valor. The citation praised his extraordinary heroism and aggressive fighting spirit. His decision to engage directly saved American lives. Although the Battle of Peleliu was brutal, lasting over 2 months and costing nearly 2,000 American lives, military historians later calculated that without Stout's attack, the casualties would have been far worse. Those 40 aircraft would have launched during the vulnerable first hours, strafing landing craft and bombing transport ships. Historians calculated Stout's solo attack probably saved between 500 and 1,000 Marine lives in the first day alone. His 8 minutes of combat accomplished what a full squadron of bombers might have achieved at the exact critical moment. After the war, Stout lived quietly in California, rarely speaking about what he had done. The Navy Cross sat in a drawer. When asked about the attack, he would downplay it. "I saw planes that needed destroying, so I destroyed them," he'd say. Any pilot would have done the same. But not every pilot would have. Most would have followed orders, giving the Japanese time to scatter or launch. Stout's willingness to disobey orders and trust his own judgment made the difference. His story remained largely unknown until decades later when historians rediscovered the mission reports and cross-referenced them with Japanese records. One man, one aircraft. 8 minutes, 40 enemy planes destroyed. Potentially 1,000 lives saved. The attack demonstrated the value of initiative at the tactical level. Stout was gambling his life on his assessment of the threat. Everything argued for caution. Follow orders, report back, let someone higher up decide. But Stout understood that the person on the ground, seeing the situation with their own eyes, sometimes has better judgment than commanders miles away. His willingness to trust his assessment, even by disobeying orders, embodied the principle of commander's intent. The Navy hadn't ordered him to attack the airfield, but they had sent him to protect the invasion force. He understood the mission's intent and adapted. The Navy recognized this by awarding the Navy Cross instead of court-martialing him. They understood that rigid adherence to orders would have resulted in disaster. Stout's disobedience was actually the highest form of following intent over instruction. Modern fighter pilots study Stout's attack in tactical training for the decision-making under pressure. His actions demonstrated perfect target prioritization. He didn't waste ammunition on individual aircraft. He identified the exposed fuel drums as the critical vulnerability and exploited it. One bullet in the right place accomplished more than 1,000 in the wrong places. His approach from multiple angles, coming in low and fast to minimize exposure, showed tactical sophistication. And critically, he knew when to stop. After expending his ammunition, he got out. The mission was accomplished. Robert Cowboy Stout died in 2005 at the age of 91. His family finally shared his story publicly. The mission reports and the Navy Cross citation confirmed what seemed almost too dramatic to believe. Stout's attack stands as one of the most successful solo strikes in naval aviation history. No other single pilot destroyed as many enemy aircraft in one mission during World War II. His 8 minutes of combat prevented a devastating air attack on the Peleliu invasion. The Marines who landed on those beaches never knew that a Navy pilot had disobeyed orders to save their lives. They fought through hell, but at least they didn't face 40 aircraft strafing them as they reached shore. Sometimes the most heroic thing a soldier can do is refuse to follow orders, not out of rebellion, but because the situation demands action that rigid adherence to procedure would prevent. Stout understood this instinctively. When confronted with a choice between doing what he was told and doing what needed to be done, he chose the mission over the orders. His legacy lives on in every tactical training course that teaches initiative over obedience, adaptation over rigidity, and trust in the judgment of people on the ground. The military learned that sometimes the best course of action is the one nobody ordered you to take.